The mountain air carried a primal chill, whispering through ancient pines that guarded the cabin like silent sentinels. Tucked into the rugged folds of the Appalachians, this log sanctuary, built by a war-weary grandfather after storming Normandy's beaches, stood as a monument to grit and freedom. Its weathered beams groaned under decades of snow and wind. Its stone chimney belched defiance against the cold, and its porch offered a front-row seat to a valley where wolves still howled under starlit skies. Alex, a software engineer in his 40s, had inherited this haven after his father's death, a sacred escape from the city's soul-crushing grind. Here he could split wood, tinker with vintage motorcycles, and fire rounds into hay bales on his back acreage without a neighbor's glare. But a storm was brewing, not from the sky but from the manicured hellscape of Pine Valley, a gated community sprawling at the mountain's base. It started with a shadow creeping up the dirt road, a white SUV, tinted windows gleaming like a predator's eyes. Alex, mid-swing with an axe, froze as two men in crisp polos slunk from the vehicle, clipboards clutched like weapons. They didn't speak, just scanned his property with sneers, eyeing the neatly stacked firewood and the open garage where a half-restored Indian motorcycle gleamed. Alex shouted a greeting, half cordial, half warning, and they retreated without a word, leaving tire tracks and a gnawing dread. Days later, a letter arrived, its Pine Valley HOA seal screaming self-righteous authority. It listed violations. The firewood was an eyesore, the motorcycles cluttered, the occasional gunfire, a public menace. Alex's cabin, free from any HOA for decades, was being targeted. Furious, he drove to the HOA office, a sterile annex to a gaudy clubhouse. There he met Karen, the HOA president, a woman with a helmet of bleach blonde hair, lips pursed like she'd swallowed a lemon, and eyes that judged before they saw. She lectured him on community standards, claiming his cabin a mile up the mountain tanked her neighborhood's property values. Alex countered with deeds and history, but Karen scoffed, thrusting a binder of bylaws at him and vowing patrols to enforce compliance. Back at the cabin, Alex's blood boiled. Online forums buzzed with tales of Karen's reign, fines for unapproved mailbox colors, threats over kids' chalk drawings. She'd hired a private security firm, dubbed HOA Enforcers, to stalk the development's edges, intimidating anyone who defied her vision. Alex ignored the letters piling up, focusing on an upcoming reunion with his cousins, battle-scarred veterans with a love for Harleys and zero tolerance for nonsense. But the patrols grew bolder. One dusk, as Alex grilled venison, the SUV returned, its occupants snapping photos from his driveway. When he challenged them, they smirked, citing Karen's orders. The air crackled with tension, a standoff teetering on the edge of violence as Alex realized this was no mere annoyance. It was war. His sanctuary was under siege, and with his cousin's arrival looming, the stage was set for a clash that would shake the mountain. The war escalated with the ferocity of a summer squall. Karen's letters morphed into ultimatums, each one a fresh stab at Alex's pride. They came with grainy photos, his firewood pile circled in red, his flagpole labeled dilapidated, his garage door open to reveal junk. The HOA claimed his property, shielded by a forest ridge, somehow scarred their pristine view. Alex's lawyer friend laughed at the absurdity. Deeds from 1947 proved the cabin's independence, untouchable by Pine Valley's rules. Emboldened, Alex fired back a letter demanding they back off, citing trespass laws. For a fleeting moment, the mountain grew quiet. No SUVs, no patrols. He prepped for the reunion, hauling extra firewood and tuning his own Harley to join his cousin's pack. Mike, a grizzled Marine with a beard like barbed wire. Jake, an Army vet whose scars told stories words couldn't. And Tom, a Navy SEAL with eyes that saw through lies, were due any day. Their bikes would roar like a cavalry charge, a promise of brotherhood and defiance. But Karen struck again. At dawn, the growl of ATVs shattered the silence. 4 men in black tactical vests, HOA enforcers stitched in gold, stormed the property like they owned it. The leader, a hulking figure with a shaved head and a sneer, slapped a citation into Alex's chest, ranting about illegal gatherings and fire hazards from the bonfire pit. They fanned out, one kicking at the garage door, another snapping photos of the cabin's roof. Alex's heart thundered. He was alone, outnumbered, and the men's aggressive posturing screamed trouble. He demanded they leave, phone recording, but the leader stepped closer, breath hot with menace, daring Alex to make a move. The others circled like wolves, testing locks and peering through windows. Panic clawed at Alex's gut as he dialed the sheriff, who promised a deputy but warned of delays. The men pressed closer, one grabbing a shovel leaning against the porch. The situation teetered on a knife's edge until a distant rumble shook the earth. Not ATVs, but the guttural roar of Harleys. The cousins had arrived early, 6 bikes tearing up the road like a storm front. Mike led, his chopper a black beast spitting dust. Jake and Tom flanked him, their machines gleaming with menace. They skidded into the drive, engines snarling, gravel flying like shrapnel. The enforcers froze, their bravado evaporating as Mike dismounted, his frame a wall of muscle and ink. He didn't speak, just stared, a predator sizing up prey. Jake cracked his knuckles, and Tom's silent gaze promised consequences. The leader stammered, dropping his citation book. His men scrambled, one tripping over an ATV, camera smashing on a rock. Engines whining, they fled down the mountain, dust clouds marking their retreat. The cousins roared with laughter, slapping Alex's back, but the victory was bittersweet. Karen's audacity had ignited a fire, and with the Harleys still rumbling, Alex knew the fight was far from over. The cabin buzzed with the electric hum of defiance. The cousins turned the reunion into a war council, their Harleys parked like a steel barricade. Around a roaring bonfire, they swapped stories of combat and camaraderie, but Karen's shadow loomed. The latest letter, delivered at sunrise, accused Alex of orchestrating a biker gang intimidation and threatened lawsuits. Blurry photos showed the Harleys' arrival, captioned as thugs endangering the community. Alex's fury mingled with the cousins' resolve. They'd faced worse than a suburban dictator. Mike, ever the tactician, proposed a show of force. They'd ride to the HOA office, deliver a legal cease and desist, and make it clear the mountain wasn't hers to claim. Jake suggested a display to rattle Karen's cage, while Tom, silent but lethal, cleaned his hunting rifle, a quiet promise. The next day, 7 Harleys, Alex now astride his own, thundered down the mountain, a rolling earthquake that shook Pine Valley's manicured streets. Residents froze, mowers stilled, windows cracked open. The bikes formed a V, chrome glinting like blades as they parked outside the clubhouse. Karen emerged, face a mask of rage and fear, flanked by trembling board members. Alex stepped forward, cease and desist in hand, detailing her overreach and warning of legal repercussions. The cousins stood behind him, a wall of muscle and leather, their silence louder than any shout. Karen sputtered about vandalism and gang activity, but her voice cracked as residents gathered, drawn by the spectacle. Whispers spread, stories of Karen's fines, her bullying, her obsession with control. The crowd grew, some nodding at Alex, others glaring at Karen. The tide was turning. By nightfall, social media buzzed with videos of the Harley standoff posted by neighbors tired of Karen's reign. The HOA's next meeting became a battlefield. Residents, emboldened by the cousins' show, unleashed years of grievances, fines for trivialities, threats over pets, patrols harassing kids. Karen's allies shrank as a vote of no confidence passed overwhelmingly. She stormed out, vowing revenge, but her power was broken. The new board, chastened, sent Alex a formal apology, confirming his property's exemption. The mountain exhaled, its peace restored. The cabin stood triumphant, its logs glowing under a crimson sunset. Karen's fall rippled through Pine Valley. Fines vanished, patrols disbanded, and the HOA shrank to managing potlucks and playgrounds. Alex fortified the cabin with cameras, capturing only deer and starlight. The cousins lingered for days, their Harleys a reminder of the victory forged in unity. On their final ride, engines roared a farewell, echoing across the peaks. Alex sat on the porch sipping whiskey, the valley below free of Karen's shadow. The fight had been more than property. It was about legacy, freedom, and the right to exist unbothered. The cabin, like its owner, stood unbowed, a beacon of resistance against petty tyrants. The mountains whispered their approval, and for the first time in weeks, Alex slept without dreams of trespassers.